Hello and welcome back to another LMMS video. Today we're going to look at how to make a really emotional, calm, ambient kind of intro type thing that you can use for any type of song, at least most songs. If you want the overall feel to be really calm and nostalgic kind of, maybe, it's all up to you at the end. So to begin, we are going to create a kind of lead, but this lead is going to be really soft. Now, to create this soft kind of lead, we're going to use the sine wave. We're going to change it by adding a bit of the octave harmonics. We're going to add a bit of phase mod, a little bit of phase mod. Turn the amplitude volume on, and we're going to put a bit of attack, a bit of decay, and then sustain. We're going to leave it a bit lower than the max. Release time, I'm going to put that on low, and we're done with that. Now we're going to keep the filter frequency on 64, and then we're going to go to the effects. We're going to add an equalizer. What we're going to do is cut off some of the subs, and then we're going to cut off the highs as well. We're going to go about 2 kilohertz and a bit more taming of the high end. Next, we are going to add an amplifier to boost the volume a bit. We're going to go into master volume, turn up the volume. And the next step, we are going to add some reverb. I'm gonna put decay time on quite high so we can get a bit of pad going on there as well. Dry amount, I'm gonna increase that, and a bit of wet. Turn down the volume. And then we're going to add some saturation. I'm gonna low pass the in gain so we get a more smoother sound. And there we go, we have our first lead. We're going to call that the lead. Now we're going to add another Zenad sub effects. This time we're going to try make a pad. So we're going to use pad synth. I'm gonna use a triangle saw. I'm gonna add some harmonics. We're going to go to envelopes here and increase the attack time. The release time and sustain value, we're going to take that a bit down. The amplitude LFO, we're going to increase it a bit so it's a bit noticeable. The frequency LFO, we're going to increase that a bit as well. Make the frequency a bit slow. And we're going to apply changes. We can increase the bandwidth, and then we can put the bandwidth on max over here. Actually, that's a bit too much. Now we're going to make it louder. Apply changes, and we're going to close this. Then we're going to go over here. I'm going to add an equalizer. We're going to cut up about 100 hertz, and a bit of the high end as well. If you want a calm intro, you can't have too much of the high end because it's just going to make it sound really exciting, and you don't want that. You want it to be around 200 to about 1 kilohertz max, really. we're going to add a reverb. We're gonna have to increase the wet amount, so we have the about half of wet amount mixed with half of the dry amount. Increase the decay time. You need a pretty long decay time. Room size, increase that to like 4. Bass cuts, I'm gonna leave that at about 400. Treble cuts, we're going to put that down to 1.5. No pre-delay, we don't need any of that. And then we're going to call this the pad. Now we have a lead and a pad. We're going to try to create something out of it. So I created a chord progression here with a melody. I'm going to give you the listen on the chords. And we have a lead melody over here. And together they sound like this. So that's kind of okay, but I don't think that is quite enough. We are going to add a soft bass. Now I'm gonna grab out triple oscillator here, and let's make a kind of soothing bass. We're going to use a saw wave, and oscillator is turned off. Now that sounds too exciting. That sounds way too exciting. We're going to activate a low pass times 2, actually. 2 times low pass. 2 times low pass is just a low pass, but it's twice as heavy, if you know what I mean. The effect of the low pass is much more noticeable compared to a 1 times low pass. So we're going to use that to kind of cut a lot of the high end out. I'm gonna move it all the way down to maybe about 880 hertz. And here we're going to add an equalizer. We're going to cut out the sub frequencies. Yeah, just put this down on 1 kilohertz. We're going to boost some of the 200 and lower some of the 800. So we have kind of a shape like this. And of course we need reverb on the bass. Now we don't want a lot of reverb, so what we're going to do is turn down the wet amount, turn up the dry amount, the room size on 1, high frequency damp, turn that down a bit, bass cut on that about 300 hertz, treble cut all the way down to 500, about 550, diffusion down, and decay time, you can bring that up. Now one thing we should do here is activate some detuning. So I'm gonna put this on minus 30, plus 30, plus 30, and here we're gonna do minus 30. We're going to move this about 15 actually. That's a bit too much. 15 is about the right amount. It doesn't sound too thick. What we're going to do is activate oscillator 1, turn the volume like about minus 23. We're going to use a noise waveform. If we add a bit of noise, we can add some texture on top of the bass. Oh, actually a fun thing I just found. You use FM with oscillator 2 and 3 and turn oscillator 3 down to about minus 33. you get a kind of nice Reese kind of, sound. In the effects, we're going to add a saturator. If you turn the gradient to the left, you get a smoother sound, and if you turn it to the right, you get a harsher sound. I'll show you what that sounds like. We're going to turn up the amount. So this is with the gradient on the left. This is the gradient on the right. Actually, my fault. I mean the right side of the gradient is smooth. The left side of the gradient is harsh. So we're going to use the smooth side, which is the right side. Going to low pass the in gain. The in gain is basically what goes in before the saturator. So we'll put the low pass on about 500. We low pass the bass before we put it through the saturator. And in this low pass right here, that's the output low pass. That if we turn that is affecting the noise after it has been saturated. So this is before it's saturated, this is after it's saturated. Same with the high pass filters over here. I'm gonna put the saturator before the reverb. So the sound goes through the saturator and then the reverb. If you notice here, the bass, it has a kind of LFO effect. It's kind of going like a wave. But each note has a different wave speed. It's mainly because we're using frequency modulation, which is what FM is. First, we're going to copy the pad down to the bass by using Control, click, and drag. And then we're going to delete all the top notes. And with that, we're going to Control down arrow, move it down 2 octaves. And we are going to add a second bass, which is going to be half an ARP, half a bass. So we're going to use another triple oscillator. Before we touch anything, I want to go to the cutoff. We're going to use 2 times low pass filter, turn that down to about 500, 600, yeah, about that. We're going to go to the cutoff envelope, turn that amount to about, just a little bit. You don't want it to move the frequency knob too much. We're going to add some attack. We're going to turn down the hold. Sustain is going down, decay is going down, so we have a movement kind of going like wow every time we press a note. We can make that more drastic by turning up the amount. Kind of a wow kind of thing. Actually, I want to turn it a bit higher. I'm going to turn the cutoff frequency back to 100. So you can get kind of movement going on there. We're going to turn off oscillator 1. We're using a square wave for oscillator 2 with coarse detuning down -24 semitones. And we have oscillator 3. We're going to turn the volume of that down a bit, also -24 semitones, and we're using a sine wave. I'm going to add another equalizer. We're going to cut a bit of 100 Hz, we're going to cut a bit of 500 Hz, and a bit of 200. We're going to cut this all the way down to about 2 kilohertz, and we're going to boost a bit of the 1 to 2 kilohertz range. Actually, let's change the oscillator 3 to a triangle wave. What we're going to do is copy the pad pattern down here. We're going to use the notes of the chords to create the ARP. So I moved this up an octave between C5 and C6. What we are going to do is go back to the cutoff envelope. We're going to turn down the attack a bit. Since our notes are really short, we want it to play the whole envelope before the note finishes. So we're going to make it a bit shorter. That's about right. So we have all our 4 sounds complete. And we are going to listen to the final result and see if it sounds good. So there you have it. If you did learn something, please drop a like, subscribe for more tutorials and videos and music, and comment down what you thought about this video. So thanks everybody for watching, and I will see you guys in another video. Goodbye.